This path of inauthenticity not only leads you to feel not fulfilled, but sometimes even damaged. And not only that, but the opportunities that the world is trying to give you are not fitting. And there are needs in the world not being met because you aren't showing up authentically as yourself. Welcome to the Love Your Brain podcast, the podcast designed for everyday people who are ready to hop off the negative thought hamster wheel and enjoy a less hostile environment in their own brains. Our brains are where we live our entire lives, and I'm on a mission to help people see that they have everything they need to make it a happier place to be. So join us for this episode of the Love Your Brain podcast. Let's get started. Welcome back. Today, we are going to be building on what we discussed last week about embracing the weird and the power of showing up authentically as yourself. And we're going to be focusing specifically on authenticity. Now, it's easy to say being authentic is a good thing, right? But I don't think people often consider the cost associated with inauthenticity or not showing up as our authentic selves. We might know this, quote unquote, as being not a good thing, but why? Why is it not a good thing? Why might there be hidden costs or risks associated with inauthenticity? And maybe you're thinking, well, this sounds depressing. But wait, stick with me here. One thing I have learned over the years of helping people learn to love their brains is we have this tendency to minimize things that seem like they only impact us. Like if the only benefit is maybe I feel a little bit better, well, I'm not sure that is valuable enough for me to make a change, which that could be a whole topic in and of itself. But how often truly do we think something might be less important if the only impact is we are happier or more fulfilled? Often we are much more concerned with the greater impact overall. Will this make me more successful? Will it benefit those I care about? What are the long term implications? People want to know all of that up front before they invest time and energy in making a change. Because it's just a fact, most of us do not prioritize our own enjoyment of life. And if you are one of those people, then it might just take a bit more convincing as to why authenticity is so important. And that's the real reason I want to share this episode with you today. I want to show you that authenticity is not just an individual issue. It's actually not small at all when you look at its impact on the world and your own long term success in life. The impacts of authenticity or the lack thereof go much deeper and wider than most think. So let's dive into that today. So if you look up inauthenticity in Google, it explains it as a word that refers to the state of being fake, not genuine, or not authentic. It can apply to individuals, objects, or situations where someone or something is pretending to be something it's not. Now, we have a whole lot of that in our world today, unfortunately. It's actually getting to a place where it's kind of scary, especially on the internet with AI and filters. It's really hard to tell what's real and what's not. Understanding why inauthenticity is so risky can really only happen when you take the time to truly understand why authenticity is so powerful. Once you understand that power, it will help you to understand why the other side can be such a dark place to be. So, being authentic, this is a word that is almost a buzzword these days. It's used in a lot of different settings, right? Let's talk about something fun. Let's talk about designer bags. You could have a real authentic Louis Vuitton bag, right? And then you could have this knockoff that maybe you bought off the street. They can look very, very similar, but often the differences are subtle when you first look at them. But once you start owning that bag, it wears differently. It often won't last as long. It doesn't, certain things on it don't work as well. It may not be made from the same quality of material, so they might start to break down sooner. And some of the benefits of owning an authentic bag. Like, for example, if something malfunctions with your authentic bag and maybe it tears, you can take it back to Louis Vuitton and they'll repair it at no charge. But with your knockoff, that's not going to happen, right? It just simply does not retain value either. So if you have it for a long time, if you have an authentic Louis Vuitton bag, you could still sell that for a lot of money many years from now. But if you've got a knockoff, likely you're not going to get much of anything for it. Now, obviously, when it comes to bags, the life consequences may seem minimal, but I think it's worth holding on to that concept in our brains as we go deeper into this concept of authenticity. Because the way that our brains work is it's often easier to see value in concrete items than it is in human value. The human value of authenticity is tricky for us to wrap our brains around, but there are ways we can observe it. For example, think of individuals in the world that we look at as valuable humans. Usually, it's because they are able to provide something of value to the world, but that's because it's inside of them. They're drawing from something from their own inherent value, putting that out into the world in a way that others see its value. And usually it's precipitated by a need. There's a need that aligns with what someone can provide, which also adds to its value, just like supply and demand of goods. If there's a big demand and not much supply, that drives up the price or the value assigned to that good. And the same goes with people. Supply and demand works very similarly. Many of the influential people in history became influential because they are stepping up to the plate to meet a unique need that society has in that moment that no one else is providing. And then they become a valuable person for that time in history. And the important thing to note here is that they are providing something that not many others are providing, something unique, something different, something that is authentic to who they are as a person to meet a matching unique need. Think about people groups that are even seen as extremely valuable, like those that have lived to be over 100 years old. Most cultures view these individuals as valuable because they have something unique that does not exist in every other person. They have the lived experience that so many others don't. They have personal memories from times in the world that the majority of the world simply does not have. And this perspective is often what people would say is what helps prevent us from repeating history, right? Those personal accounts of the effects of certain changes in the world. Or think of people that we would view as really educated, like doctors, lawyers, professors. People have gone through tons and tons of years of schooling where they have focused studying on a very specific topic. They aren't your run of the mill. They're valuable because they have an immense amount of knowledge on a topic that not just anyone has. And typically, they're also meeting needs for people in a unique way that you don't necessarily encounter every day. That's also why these individuals are well paid or should be well paid because we assign a value to that knowledge that they have. So as we have our brains rolling on this concept of unique human value and how it impacts the world, let's go ahead and dig deeper into the impact of authenticity and inauthenticity. So when we think about authenticity, it's easy to see how being inauthentic can create an issue for us personally. If we aren't being true to ourselves, it can create inner turmoil because we're putting up a front that we're something that we're not. We can usually all agree that that doesn't feel great, pretending to be something we're not. But the part we miss is the ripple effect. But let's start off where the problem begins, at the source, the inner self. There are inner problems that arise when we are not living authentic to ourselves. Now, authenticity does a couple things for our inner health, in our brain, and in our souls. Authenticity allows us to live life in a way where we're in alignment with who we are authentically, which allows us to have much more fulfilling experiences on this planet. Also has a huge impact on what we attract into our life, what is drawn to us, the people, the opportunities that come into your life. When you are living authentically, those people and opportunities that come into your life are incredible. You're more likely to attract like minded people and opportunities that align specifically with who you are. When people are authentically being themselves and showing up as who they are at their core, bringing their value to the table, it really becomes magnetic and it does actually attract the right people at the right times. They come into their orbit just when they're needed, and you can find people and opportunities that are just the right fit. It's really cool to see how that ripple effect can impact everything in a positive way. So, here you're starting to see that authenticity isn't just about you, it's about how you interact with the world and how it interacts with you, what you attract and what you link arms with. So let's now go to a good old-fashioned analogy. If you think of like those toys we had as kids, at least for me, I was a kid of the 80s, so we had these wooden or plastic cubes with cutouts in all different shapes on each side of the cube. And then we had these pieces in those same shapes, and you would have to match up each shape to the corresponding cutout on the cube. And you know how it was when you were little and you pushed it in all the way and it was the right fit, the right piece to the right cutout. And your parents would be like, "Yay, you did so good. You got it right." Well, keep that visual in your brain because living authentically is much like that. Think about a unique opportunity as a circle cut out on that cube. Those needs in the world, they're not triangle, they're not square, they're not octagons, they are circles. Well, when we're living in your true authentic circleness, it's easy to see where you fit. You meet that need, and it's like, yay, perfect fit. That's amazing. Those kinds of pairings are fulfilling and truly bring the magic to life. That's my favorite thing to do as a coach is to help someone lean into who they are authentically, and then they stumble on this opportunity that's super unique, and maybe it's a job opportunity, a creative pursuit, or even a relationship that looks like it was legitimately made for them. They pair up perfect, it's magic, and it feels wonderfully serendipitous. Like, how did two unique things like this find each other amongst all the other shapes in the world? But that's just how this amazing universe works when it's clear and it's authentic. But on the flip side, inauthenticity breeds confusion, disjointedness, and discouragement. And I'll explain why that happens. So think about if you were the circle and you were struggling to lean into your own uniqueness and you decided to put up a front. Maybe because you weren't sure how your circleness would be received, so you kind of tried to act like you were an octagon. Because you thought, well, it was a better shape, maybe it looked cooler, or you saw an octagon opportunity and you thought that one was for you, so you tried to contort yourself. But meanwhile, these opportunities are coming along. Maybe they're circles. They may at first feel drawn to you because they can see and sense at your core that you're a circle, but then when they get up close, they see all your edges are not a circle, at least from how you're presenting, so they pass you by. And in some cases, they don't find the circle they need because you chose to put up a front as an octagon. Now, not only have you missed out, but they also have. So let's talk about what you do get. You might get some octagon opportunities that come along, and it looks like everything aligns at first, but in the end, you don't fit. You can't quite pinpoint why, but their edges and your roundedness just bump up against each other. And now you've wasted your time trying to fit in with them, and they've wasted theirs. And you might even have some bumps and bruises from trying to fit in something that was not for you. Now, this analogy of shapes seems harmless because they're shapes. But when you take this back to the human level, I hope you can see how scary and dark this can be. This path of inauthenticity not only leads you to feel not fulfilled, but sometimes even damaged. And not only that, but the opportunities that the world is trying to give you are not fitting because you aren't showing up as your authentic self. There is time being wasted trying to fit in places you don't belong. Even go back to thinking of some of those examples we talked about at the beginning of this episode. People who we in society hold high value in, that they made a big impact in our world. What about someone like Martin Luther King Jr.? Let's take him, for example. What if he tried to show up more like Abraham Lincoln in the 1950s or 60s? Do you think he could have met the need in the same way that the country needed at that time? If he had not shown up as his authentic self, we may not have seen his true value, and he would not have been able to provide exactly what the country needed in a really important time in our history. What would our world look like today? Or what if one doctor that holds all this knowledge in her brain about women's hormones, maybe she studied women's health super in depth, and she's finally figured out how to make menopause amazing. But she decided she might be a better fit as a street sweeper. She thought, well, maybe there are a ton more jobs in that area. It'd just be easier to get work and maybe a little bit less stressful. Well, she probably would find a job, but likely she wouldn't feel as fulfilled. And she wouldn't be bringing her unique value into the world. And the world would most definitely miss out. I don't know what you think, but finding someone in the world that could make menopause amazing sounds amazing to me. Or what if we had a woman who had lived to be 115, but she didn't see her own value and thought people would view her stories as boring or outdated? She just didn't want to talk about it and share her own experiences anymore because she didn't think people would be interested. She decided she only wanted to talk about the most recent viral TikToks. Come on now. That would be ridiculous. Now, these examples do sound silly, but we live this silliness out every single day. We walk around trying to be something we are not, even if it's on a small level. Think about all the conversations, small interactions you have had in your lifetime, where maybe you dimmed your light a little bit or tried to present as something you're not. Or maybe you played something up bigger than it was or less than it was. Do you ever stop and think, if you had chosen to show up as your authentic self 100% of the time, how different things could have ended up? How might your relationships be different today? How would your career path look different? Or what impact could you have had on the world? Maybe that hasn't happened just yet. The truth is, this isn't just about missing out. It's sadly more impactful than that. When we are afraid to be our authentic selves, we can do our best to try and put up a front that we are something we are not, but we are never successful 100% of the time. In almost all cases, whatever you build or attract when you're not being your authentic self will not last. It might work initially, especially with a lot of strong arming, but there is almost always a lot of damage that happens in the process, and in the end, it will not stick. Those relationships will not stick, they will not last, those jobs will fall away, all because you are not aligned with who you are at your core. And that falling away is painful. As someone who has walked alongside people on this journey, and personally, as I've navigated seasons of this as well, it is so painful. It's painful to see something fall away, and it can be very hard in that moment to see the big picture. But there is a big picture here, and I promise there's a good end coming. You know, I wouldn't leave you on a depressing note here. When we hit those moments of things falling away, where we're maybe trying to do a more intentional job of leaning into our authentic selves, and we slowly start to see things falling bit by bit around us, I'm here to tell you that's okay. You haven't done anything wrong. It's actually completely natural. The more you lean into you, the things that don't align with you are going to fall away, and it will make room for what is truly in alignment with you. You are headed in the right direction. This is all a journey, a human journey to learn about ourselves and the world around us. So, hopefully, you can see why it not only benefits you, but also the world for you to show up as your true, authentic, crazy self on full display. There are opportunities and experiences in the world just waiting to see you and say, oh, wait, that's the perfect fit. So, next time you're about to step into something new, a new conversation, a new opportunity, heck, maybe just a new day, remember that choosing the path of authenticity, of leaning into who you truly are, will lead to lasting fulfillment. The world needs the authentic you. They need you on full display so they can find you. You are the circle piece for someone else's circle cutout in the world. But most importantly, you, my friend, need to show up more authentically as yourself every day, because that is where your brain, your soul, your heart will find fulfillment, will find ease, will find clarity, and true, lasting joy. I hope you found something helpful here today on the Love Your Brain podcast. Maybe a laugh or a feeling of validation, or maybe just a few moments to have company while you do your laundry. Whatever you take from it, I hope you enjoyed your time and leave feeling empowered to be more you every day. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on the next episode, and leave a review. I'd love to hear what you think. Have a great one.